Hey all, and welcome back to the third HellfireComms Disneython. Today we're going to be taking a look at a relatively recent film, and thank you God that we decided to do these out of order, because it lets us have and take advantage of opportunities like this, for we are checking out the 2018 film Christopher Robin. I love a bit of Winnie the Pooh, everyone loves a bit of Winnie the Pooh. Richie, do you love a bit of Winnie the Pooh?
Of course I love a bit of Winnie the Pooh.
Ha, good, good. You say no more, for an intro is not needed that could best this best intro thing. Anywho, if you need help syncing our commentary to your copy of the movie, which we can't provide, obviously, for copyright reasons, check the video in the description. There are instructions and whatnot there. I feel my savviness starting to deplete, so let's get straight into the movie com itself. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. So, Richie, Christopher Robin, I think we both watched this fairly recently. I know I watched it from my 30th birthday, November 24th, 2018, which I don't know what that says about me, but it was a fun film. I wouldn't say it's the best film ever, but what were your first impressions of it?
Yeah, so, I mean, I believe that I decided I was going to watch it when you sort of watched it and was just like, we need to do this in the Disneython.
Yeah.
And so I managed to get the copy, and then I was just like, you know what? Because I'd rather, be able to talk about a film knowledgeably, at least, I just thought, I'm just going to sit down and watch it, and actually really did enjoy it. It's a really lovely film. It's got its issues, don't get me wrong. It spends about 2/3 of it being perhaps a little bit overly melancholy.
Yeah.
Which I certainly was not... Well, I mean, I was expecting it going in because I'd read the reviews, but most people would not have expected going in.
Did you read the reviews before or after watching the movie?
Before, but that was because it was a while ago when I read them. This was probably around the time that it came out, and I just happened to catch them in passing.
Okay.
It happens. But yeah, this is, I believe, definitely the most recent film that we're going to be covering in the Disneython 3, because it was released in August of 2018, which is kind of crazy. The turnaround on it has actually been really quick, because it's out on Blu-ray and DVD and all that good stuff now. So they whipped that around to get it out on home release, and I'm glad they did, because it is actually, it's a really lovely film and I really like it.
It's a good film for Christmas, I think, because like you said, it is a bit melodramatic, a bit sentimental, but at Christmas you want to revel in that sort of thing, don't you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, Christmas is the time for family, love, friendship, nostalgia, and also potentially mass murder, depending on your film. I mean, my dad finally introduced me to Die Hard the other day, and it's just finally!
Yes. Die Hard is a Christmas film. It takes place during Christmas. Ergo, it is a Christmas film. Alright, let's get to the main point of contention out of the way. How do you feel about them using CGI for Pooh and crew instead of, puppets and whatnot?
To be honest, I'm pretty okay with it. I think that what they've done here is really well done CGI.
Yeah.
It could have gone terribly. I mean, I'm not necessarily entirely certain about the CGI on Rabbit and Owl, because they are looking much more like real creatures than the toys. But the toys look incredible, and I mean, really incredible. I wasn't expecting them to look quite so good, and I love it.
I agree. There's obviously, since these are old toys, they have a certain wear and tear to them, which is very endearing. Funny thing about Rabbit and Owl being actual animals, wasn't that always the way? They were never Christopher Robin's toys, were they?
I think you are probably right on that, actually. I mean, so the real stuff toys, you basically got Tigger, Pooh, Eeyore, and Ganga, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So they're the ones, there was a Roo toy, but, he got lost when, Christopher Robin Milne was very young, so, we don't have Roo anymore. Roo disappeared.
Jesus Christ. Alright, let's talk about, the star of the show here, the pre-evolved form of Eddie Redmayne, the kid playing Christopher Robin. I'm sorry, that's just who he reminded me of.
It's totally fair. I think he does a really good job. I mean, it's a tiny little part. He's hardly in it at all. The main draw here is the amazing Ewan McGregor, who is going to play adult Christopher Robin.
Oh yeah.
But I think that this kid does a very good job and does a lovely job reacting with all of these lovely toys. And also, can I just say, even though they didn't bring back a number of the cast that I wish that they had done, from the typical voice actors for all of Winnie the Pooh and Friends, they did at least bring back Jim Cummings for Winnie the Pooh and Tigger, because it would have felt so wrong had they not.
Okay, since you brought up voices, let's go down the list. Obviously, we have Jim Cummings reprising his iconic roles as Winnie the Pooh and Tigger too. But who else is in this cast, mate? I remember it being pretty prestigious.
Oh yeah, so as Eeyore, you have Brad Garrett, who is an American stand-up actor, voice actor, and professional poker player.
Mm-hmm.
He's been in a lot of stuff, so he's in Pocahontas 2, Bug's Life, Extremely Goofy Movies, Stuart Little 2, Finding Nemo, Garfield, Night at the Museum, Ratatouille, Tangled, Planes, etc., etc. I'm going to go down to the list and see if I can actually figure out what he is. Nothing actually particularly famous in those. Oh no, he was Dim in A Bug's Life, so he has done, in terms of Disney, some particularly big / side roles. So Ratatouille, he is Gusteau. In
course.
Tangled, he's the voice of the hook hand thug,
Oh.
and so on and so forth. And I think he does a really good Eeyore. It's not the Eeyore that we would all particularly love.
Transform and roll out.
Yes, the wonderful Peter Cullen, who is still technically the voice of Eeyore. But Brad Garrett also has voiced Eeyore in actually a few things. And also, most recently, as a cameo in Wreck-It Ralph 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet, which was actually surprisingly delightful. I quite enjoyed that.
I've heard mixed opinions. I will watch it, don't get me wrong. I'll probably play it in Disneython 4 whenever that happens. Not happening in 2019. I'm taking a break from marathons then, but...
Totally fair. So, Piglet, we have Nick Mohammed.
Pooh Sticks.
Who is I know, Pooh Sticks. It's brilliant. So, Nick Mohammed is a British comedian, actor, and writer. Not been in anything, I would say, particularly famous, but I will say that he did do his doctoral studies in seismology at Magdalen College, Cambridge, so woot woot. But that's about all he's got there. You've then, as Rabbit, got the incredible Peter Capaldi.
Hell yeah.
I didn't realise when I was watching the film that it was Peter Capaldi. Now that I've seen it, I'm just like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever.
I kept thinking it was Toby Jones for some reason.
Well, that's because Toby Jones is the voice of Owl.
Ah, there you go.
So they've got them, and then you've got the really talented Sophie Okonedo as the voice of Kanga.
Why do I know that name?
So she's been in a lot of theatre. She also appeared in Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, but she's done a lot of work over the years, and she has got quite a big, I wouldn't say following, but she's got quite a big profile in the UK, mostly for sort of her theatrical stuff. But she's great, so she voices Kanga, and then you've got Sarah Sheen, who voices Roo, but there's no link to who she is. So that's that.
Let's get credit where credit's due. Who plays young Christopher Robin just before we see him go off to boarding school and become a changed boy/man?
Yes, so young Christopher Robin is played by a kid called Autumn O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I got on that.
That's fine, mate. Don't worry about it.
And what's really fascinating is that what Christopher Robin the film does, as well as, completely tearing your heart out during this sequence, as Pooh Bear goes to the door to see if Christopher Robin's going to turn up, and then he doesn't, and then it's just like, oh my god, I'm crying, and the film's not even started yet, is that it does actually detail some of the real life experiences of the real Christopher Robin.
Mm-hmm.
It's not exact, But he did go away to boarding school. He did have a pretty shoddy time at boarding school, because basically he grew to hate Winnie the Pooh and his fictional incarnation in very much the same way as actually his father, A.A. Milne, grew to kind of hate Winnie the Pooh, because that was all anybody really cared about him for, when that was not all that he wrote. So the original actual Christopher Robin went away to boarding school. He we're going to see it eventually, but he did end up going to university, go to the war, he didn't have the best of relationships with his parents. And so what we see in this film is ultimately an approximation of what did happen to real life Christopher Robin, which I think is a really interesting thing to see, because it's not something that I ever actually realised about Christopher Robin. I knew about A.A. Milne because before writing the 4 books on Winnie the Pooh, he was a noted writer, primarily a playwright, but he did lots of poems, lots of plays, and was very, very appreciated. But because he spent, I think, so much time working in literature, he felt that he needed to kind of make it up to his kid.
Yeah.
Because he didn't see him enough. So he wrote his kind of first 2 Pooh books and named the boy in it Christopher Robin after his son.
Aww.
And then what ended up happening is that those stories became so popular that then that's all anybody ever wanted from A.A. Milne.
Yeah,
and because obviously he began as a serious quote-unquote writer, he then began to resent that because that was all that anybody wanted from him, and everything that he sort of wrote after that wasn't as successful as Pooh, and that really drove him a bit potty. And the actual Christopher Robin, initially he was kind of a celebrity at the time. When the books came out, his parents trotted him out to all the press and stuff, and had a wonderful time. But then as Christopher went into kind of teenage years, got bullied at school, he kind of became then estranged from his father and mother because he resented that they'd exploited his childhood. And kind of sold that and packaged it up, and so he didn't have a childhood sort of anymore.
Christ!
And he never really made it up with them, but thankfully he did in the end come to terms with Pooh Bear and the legacy of Winnie the Pooh, and actually does quite like the stories. I think it was just sort of that period of his life for a long time where it was quite messy. So yeah, the real life story of Christopher Robin and A.A. Milne and Winnie the Pooh is really dark and messy.
Puts a whole new spin on the term silly old bear if you think about it. It kind of comes off as spiteful.
I know, it's nuts.
I love this intro, by the way, like these first 15 minutes.
Oh, I know, it's really well done. And I think it works because it matches sort of the art of, I think it's E.H. Shepard who did the original drawings of Winnie the Pooh. And I think it's very much in the tone of the original Winnie the Pooh stuff. And also just the music that you get on throughout it is absolutely gorgeous.
Very much so.
I believe... Well, actually, no, I'm not quite sure which song we're on by this point. We're 12 minutes in, so I'm assuming we've gone through quite a few. But you had Storybook not doing nothing anymore. I would have liked it to go on for a while longer. Chapters, etc. And it's all been written by Jeff Zanelli and John Brian, although they did bring back the wonderful Richard M. Sherman for 3 songs. One of which was Goodbye Farewell, which was sung by all of the cast at the leaving party, and then 2 which turn up in the credits, which are utterly delightful.
Oh god, incoming ham alert!
And only right, I mean, Mark Gatiss is awesome.
He of Doctor Who alumni.
Yes, and also being one of the co-showrunners of Sherlock.
Yep.
I believe he plays Sherlock's brother, who I can never remember the name of, which is really bad.
It's all going over my head, mate, so don't worry about it. What has Mark Gatiss been in besides, Doctor Who and Sherlock?
I will tell you in a minute, but it's Mycroft Holmes. That's who Mark Gatiss plays in that. So, I mean, he's been in, obviously, so much over the years. He was a member of the sketch comedy team The League of Gentlemen, which was quite popular back in the day. Guested in Spaced, which is an excellent sitcom, which I would recommend everybody watch and go back to, because it's excellent.
Oh, the Simon Pegg thing?
Yes. Brilliant. You've obviously got Professor Lazarus in the Lazarus Experiment in Doctor Who.
Oh, yikes. Oh, mixed episode for me.
I know, but he also returned in The Wedding of River Song as a character known as Gantok, and in the Christmas special of 2017, Twice Upon a Time as the Captain. He's also been in Game of Thrones as Tycho Nestoris. He was also in Wolf Hall as King Henry VIII's secretary, Stephen Gardiner. He's been in ludicrous amounts, but I would say the main ones that people do know him for is Doctor Who, Sherlock, his work as a writer. And what's actually really fun is that most recently he was at the Nottingham Playhouse, our lovely home city, playing King George III in The Madness of King George, which went really well from what I can gather. I didn't manage to go see it, but it was received really well. It was broadcast across the globe.
Wow.
And I believe that he has been nominated. I don't know if it's just a What's on Stage award at this present moment in time, but it's very likely, I think, that he may or may not end up getting nominated for an Olivier for it. It went really well. So yeah, he's an excellent actor. Here, he just really hams it up, but it's really wonderful ham, and I'm totally here for it.
He's the comic relief of the film, pretty much. Ironically so, considering he could also be considered the antagonist of the piece.
Yeah.
Because the main, first look and see of the movie is Christopher Robin. He's torn between home and work, and he's mostly leaning towards work. And then, out of nowhere, his boss comes to him and says, you've got to slash, it's either 20 people or 20% of the workforce. And he's like, oh no, this is rather bothersome. Oh, if only Winnie the Pooh was here, he thought to himself subconsciously. And then, when you know it, Pooh comes to save him. Or was it Winnie the Pooh saving Christopher Robin, or the other way around? I don't know. I just make up words that come out of my mouth.
That's basically what we do every time we do a commentary. We just sort of blather, and then eventually somehow a point will be made, and it will sound either funny or really profound, and we'll totally get away with it, but it wasn't necessarily always the intention. But yeah, you are right. Basically, Christopher's got to decrease expenditures by 20%.
Okay, that was it.
In Winslow's idea, that is by choosing which employees to lay off and get rid of the people who are the worst. But obviously Christopher's plan with that is, initially, no, I do not want to sack anybody, because that is not fair at all. And so he initially goes, well, I'm going to work a ludicrous number of hours to try and figure out the solution to this problem. Because I don't want to sack anybody, but ultimately he's probably going to end up having to sack somebody.
Yeah.
And in doing so, yeah, kind of neglects his family. And honestly, if my wife was Hayley Atwell, I would not be ignoring her, because Hayley Atwell is amazing.
She's a bit of a bombshell, so she is. And speaking of old-timey lingo, wasn't she Agent Peggy Carter?
Indeed, she was a phenomenal Agent Peggy Carter, and an absolute badass, and really I wish we could see more of Hayley Atwell on our screens, because she is definitely one of my favourite female actresses of the modern age, because she's just got such an amazing sort of look and voice. Funnily enough, she was also Cinderella's mother in the Kenneth Branagh live-action Cinderella from 2013, I think it was.
Cool.
She didn't really do much in that role, but she was there. But obviously the main thing that we all know her from is as Peggy Carter, and I am still absolutely furious that we didn't get any more than 2 seasons of Agent Carter, because that was a really damn good show and deserved more love.
Well, if it didn't get the ratings, it didn't get the ratings. Alright, who is playing Krista's daughter here? I kind of phrase that like a speaking spell, but it's okay, I'm just gearing up.
So, Madeline Robin is played by a really talented young girl, actually, called Bronte Carmichael, which is a very strange name, but honestly, at this point, there are people celebrities who've called their children Moon Unit, so honestly, calling a child Bronte is not the weirdest thing in the world, and at least I hope she's named after some excellent writers. Namely the Bronte sisters, obviously.
Indeed.
But yeah, I think she does a really good job. Something that's kind of weird is that the names of Christopher's wife and daughter are different than they were in reality.
Ah.
So here they are Evelyn and Madeline, which I think it does sound quite nice. But Christopher's actual wife was Leslie de Selincourt, who kind of weirdly was a cousin on his mother's side. But I think, I was going to say sort of 50 years ago, it was maybe a little bit more normal to marry a cousin. It wasn't really, but it was a little bit. And also I think they were estranged cousins, so his mother and her father hadn't spoken in like 30 years.
Well, as long as they haven't seen each other before, it's perfectly okay to bang if they're related.
Yeah, so a little bit weird there. But yeah, his daughter, they called her Claire. But kind of sadly, she was born and diagnosed with severe cerebral palsy, so that's not great. It
would have made the movie even more sad if they kept to Claire's portrayal, I think.
Yeah, but thankfully, that said, she did survive to, well, for someone with cerebral palsy, I'd say grand old age of 56. Because, particularly when you have sort of those lifelong conditions, sometimes your life expectancy is really not good. Some people obviously die in like their 20s. So the fact that she lived to 2012 at the age of 56 is quite a damn good achievement. And she did a lot of charity work, so that's great.
Awesome stuff, mate, awesome stuff. So, we've had war, we've had, the birth of new life, Christopher and, is it Madeline or Evelyn? Madeline's the daughter, right?
Madeline's the daughter.
Okay, Christopher and Evelyn's daughter, and, troubles at work, and now we have troubles at home and whatnot. Where's a stuffed bear to just help you get through your troubles when you need him?
I know, we are very, very overdue a Winnie the Pooh, because, yeah, I say that, we did have, like, a lot of Pooh Bear in the first kind of 10 minutes of the film, and we're only about 10 minutes after that, so it's not been long without Pooh.
No.
But I think because it's very serious stuff going on here, very kind of serious marital arguments, that mentally we're just like, can we have Pooh Bear, please? I need my kind of lovely tubby little cubby or stuff with fluff to make me feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
I gotta say, I love how the movie is lit. The lighting in the movie gives off a very comfy atmosphere. And I will say, the movie does get slightly farcical towards the end.
Yes.
Which it's fine. I can, take or leave it. It's for the right demographic, I think. I would have preferred if the movie stayed a bit more serious overall to help match this tone.
Yeah, I think overall what the film could have done is probably just shorten its running length a little bit.
A little bit.
Because it does spend what feels like an eternity in this kind of melancholy tone, which totally works for the story they're telling, and it's really well done. But it is just that it lasts that bit too long, and then when it perhaps should reach its conclusion, it then goes on and goes into sort of more farcical, cartoony territory, which is still utterly delightful.
Yeah.
But it does feel slightly at odds with the rest of the film. And while it makes sense in context, yeah, it's that whole not being quite as well balanced as it perhaps should be. Which I suppose is probably a good time to go on to the overall reception of Christopher Robin.
Yeah, go for it.
So yeah, so it was relatively well received. It has an average approval rating of 72% on Rotten Tomatoes, with an average rating of about 6.1 out of 10. The general critical consensus is that it may not equal A.A. Milne's stories or the Disney animated adaptations, but it should prove sweet enough for audiences seeking a little childhood magic. Metacritic has it at about 60 out of 100 based on 43 reviews, so it's much more average there in terms of the overall review score. But that said, with Cinema Score, which I've not really heard of that before, the sort of average grade of that was actually an A on an A+ to F scale. So it did do well in some places, but in other places not so much. Generally what happens with those more, how shall I put it, diversive or polarising narratives, and also Pooh Bear! Finally, you're back! And
I'm so sorry for swearing at you, Pooh Bear, all those years ago. Hopefully by now I have earned your forgiveness.
Also, I look at this, and I think it was probably this scene where I was just like, I don't care that this is not a puppet, because it looks almost like if it was a puppet.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I forget which movie I said it, but it may have been yesterday's commentary at Moana, actually, where I said, like, the line between hand-drawn animation and CGI is becoming blurred in certain films that I don't really care if hand-drawn's not around anymore.
I know, it's just like, a lot of the magic of hand-drawn animation, while part of it was the hand-drawn nature of it and the fact that it could be a lot more fluid, part of it was just the style. Like, it gave off such a kind of evocative feeling. Like, I mean, I'm not sure exactly how much like The Lion King was fully hand-drawn and what was digitally drawn, but you get sort of those later 2D Disney films, and you get to the point where, yeah, a lot of them weren't just hand-drawn anymore, they were digital 2D, and they still looked great. So people really did like that look. It's just that obviously it's become less and less profitable, but I don't know whether that is a case of they stopped making them, therefore people stopped watching them, and so when they came out with one, But then the other side of the thing is that the one time that they did come back with doing a 2D film, which was Princess and the Frog and Winnie the Pooh 2011, was that, one, they don't think they really advertised Winnie the Pooh 2011 that much, and while Princess and the Frog is enjoyable, it's not the most amazing Disney film in the world, so it wasn't necessarily always going to do as well as it perhaps would have done if it was a better story. Debatable. Anyway, back to those reviews, because I only got through the average stuff rather than the specifics.
Okay.
But this bit is really depressing, and my heart just goes out to Pooh. I'm just like, oh my god, Pooh Bear, I love you.
I have to say, just before you get into reviews, love what they did with the 100-acre wood. It makes me want to go for a walk there myself.
Oh my god, yes, it's stunning. I love it. So Ben Kenigsberg of the New York Times reviewed the film like this. Once Christopher Robin softens its insufferable, needlessly cynical conception of the title character, it offers more or less what a Pooh reboot should. A lot of nostalgia, a bit of humour, and tactile computer animation. David Sims of The Atlantic wrote, "It's an odd, melancholic experience that at times recalls Terrence Malick, as it does A.A. Milne, but there will certainly be some viewers in its exact wheelhouse." Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune gave the film 3 out of 4 stars and said Pooh's wisdom and kindness cannot be denied. The same impulses worked for the 2 Paddington movies, God knows. Christopher Robin isn't quite in their league, but it's affecting nonetheless. Richard Lawson of Vanity Fair gave it a quite positive review, heavily praising Jim Cummings particularly, calling his performance Oscar-worthy. Honestly, I would agree. I think Jim Cummings does a phenomenal job here.
Yeah, very much so.
Overall, Lawson says, as Winnie the Pooh and Tigger too, the veteran voice actor gives such sweet, rumpled, affable life to the wistful bear of literary renown that it routinely breaks the heart. Cummings' performance understands something more keenly than the movie around it. He taps into a vein of humour and melancholy that is pitched at an exact frequency, one that will speak to child and adult alike. His Pooh is an agreeable nuisance and an accidental philosopher, delivering nonsensical and yet entirely sensible adages in a friendly, deliberate murmur ringed faintly with sadness. I wanted to gently yank him from the screen and take him home with me, his fuzzy little paw in mine, as we ambled to the subway, the summer sun fading behind us. He's a good bear, this Pooh.
Yeah. I have to say, I do like they made him a teeny bit insufferable in the movie at times, because that is classic Pooh Bear. He can be a bit of, like, not a deliberate prankster, but he has that childlike wonder, which honestly works with an adult Christopher Robin more so than it would with, like, the young Christopher Robin, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. And also, I mean, Pooh is a bear of little brain, but very big heart. That's sort of his whole thing. So he's a bit dense at times, bit thick, but... So that ultimately does mean that he gets himself into trouble, but it's still really delightful. So those were the more positive reviews. The flip side is that Alonso Duralde of The Wrap called the film slow and charmless, and wrote, what we're left with is a Hook-style midlife crisis movie aimed at kids, designed to shame parents who spend too much time at the office and not enough with their families. Quite harsh. Helen O'Hara of Empire magazine gave it 2 out of 5 stars, said, everyone's trying hard, but they can't quite live up to the particularly gentle, warm tone of Pooh himself. Unlike The Bear of Very Little Brain, this is a film pulled in different directions with entirely too many thoughts in its head. So yeah, you end up in sort of those different places. We'll go into Ewan McGregor and Pooh in a bit, but Pooh's in real life! Yay!
A mental breakdown. Pooey, my stand, as it finally happened.
I mean, to be fair, you'd think you were having a little bit of a mental breakdown if you saw your childhood's toy friend come to life in reality in front of you after a particularly stressful day at work whilst your life is falling down around you. You think, I have completely lost it. I have gone mental.
Yeah.
I'm talking to a cuddly toy. It's there. I can touch it. I can feel it. It's saying stuff to me. How is this real? What is wrong with me? What have I been afflicted with in my brain?
I gotta say, this movie had one of the better trailers I've seen in recent years.
Oh, God, yeah. I think it did a really good job of advertising the whole thing and getting the tone right, I suppose.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because so many films these days, I think they get the tone of their trailers slightly off. Like, they either reveal too much, or they don't reveal enough, or they give it a completely different tone than what the actual end product has. I mean, I'm kind of loath to go back to it as a subject, but Suicide Squad had a particularly odd trailer tone. So obviously the initial trailer was very dark, grim, very DC at the time.
Jeez.
And then they came out with the big Bohemian Rhapsody trailer, which was actually an excellent trailer. But I don't think that the film was initially designed like that, and then they had to kind of retroactively make the film more like that trailer because people liked that trailer, and then we ended up with the mess that was Suicide Squad. Even though, that said, I did quite enjoy Suicide Squad for what it was, and what it tried to do. It did end up being quite messy.
Well, that's, you don't have an Oscar, Richie. They do. I'm just saying,
I mean, yeah, this is true. But just because something has an Oscar doesn't mean that it necessarily always deserves it. Wreck-It Ralph should have got the Oscar instead of Brave.
I don't know. Haven't covered Brave yet. Maybe we will for Disneython 4. Disneython 4 ever. I can't think of anything else for like a gimmick name involving 4 than just Forever. Pokemon has ruined me.
Yeah, agreed, because it's ruined it for me as well, because I can never think of anything other than Forever when that happens. I remember when I was coming up with my channel name, once my original YouTube account kind of went down due to, copyright stuff. Obviously it was X Gamer Richie Returns. It was my technically third channel at that point because my first one was there, then I'd done my movie commentary channel, then I did that one. So had that one, my X Gamer Richie Returns, been shut down, I probably would have gone with X Gamer Richie forever. That was a thought process that had gone in my head, and I did seriously consider it should anything have gone wrong, but nothing has, and I have been here for 10 years on that channel. So, well, by July 2019 I will have been on the channel for 10 years. So yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to need that name again.
God, I don't know if you've ever tried to clean honey up before, but getting out of carpet is a bitch and a half. Yeah,
thankfully I've never had to try and get it out of carpet because, one, for the longest time I didn't actually like honey. It's only been relatively recently where I'm now okay with it and I do actually quite like it. It's a very, very helpful way of sorting out any roughness in your throat.
Mm-hmm.
I think honey is a particularly common natural remedy for like sore throats, and singers I think use it a lot. So they have like warm tea and honey, or I'm trying to remember. It's either like hot Ribena and honey or hot lemonade and honey. They can all help sort of lubricate the vocal cords and make things a hell of a lot better. Sometimes before I sit down to do a comment, I know it's adorable.
Jesus.
I know. Sometimes before I do a commentary, if my throat's particularly, I do just go grab a spoonful of honey and just go, whoop, and it does help quite a lot. Also, can I just say, Treasure Island is actually a really good book.
I mean, I've never heard anyone say a bad word against it.
I know, but it's one of those where sort of like, most of the time you think, oh yeah, of course I've read that, and then you're just like, no, probably not. And it wasn't until actually only relatively recently that I sat down and read Treasure Island, which I was kind of slightly flabbergasted that it had taken me so long to get to. But then again, as I mentioned right at the start of this, my dad didn't introduce me to Die Hard until this year, which honestly I don't know how that one worked. You would have thought he would have introduced it to me many, many years ago, but he didn't.
Alright, Richie. You don't have to keep showing off with your big adult, big boy films and whatnot while watching Winnie the Pooh.
Honestly, this is sort of the spectrum of my enjoyments. Die Hard, loved it, it was brilliant. Winnie the Pooh, Christopher Robin, also really loved it. Like, once again, I've said it many times, I am once a 7-year-old, quite a few years away from a 27-year-old and a 70-year-old all at once in the same body. So, yeah.
Jesus.
What a Rube Goldberg machine of a destruction of a kitchen.
Pooh Bear, you're a creature of chaos.
Yeah, he does just wreck everything around him. Accidentally, of course. But he still does manage to pull all that off.
Don't think I missed that fucking Bisto advertisement, by the way. That's a brand that goes back some years.
Oh, yes. Ah, Bisto.
Aww.
Also, this is when, talking teddy bears. Slightly terrifying, particularly in this kind of time frame, because this is like 1948, I want to say?
Well, I'm going to choose to be pedantic and say talking teddy bears in any time frame is pretty scary.
I mean, yes, agreed. But particularly sort of in the late 40s, early 50s, where they didn't really have... Like, nowadays, we have sort of animatronic teddy bears. We have teddy bears with voices sort of stuffed in them, so they do talk and they do move. But anything that, responded and looked and moved like Pooh Bear here, would be particularly terrifying because it's just like, oh my god, it's alive!
Dead! He's fucking dead!
He's not dead, he's playing dead, and it's adorable and I love it.
Just to completely swerve here, how were the Paddington films? Because I heard they got rave reviews.
I still haven't actually seen them, but I too have heard absolute rave reviews of them.
Movie night! Movie night!
Yeah, we probably will have to do that at some point. Which part of it fascinates me, because I'm not quite sure how they managed to pull that off, because initially the original Paddington looked a little bit rubbish. But I think then, because initially, who was it? I think it was Colin Firth, who was meant to be voicing Paddington, but I think on paper that sounds great, but then he tried to sort of voice it, and he was just like, "This doesn't sound right. I sound far too old." And to be honest, even though he's amazing, he was always going to sound too old.
Fun fact: Peter Capaldi is actually the villain in those movies.
Ah, that's quite fun.
Yeah, there you go.
So then they got Ben Whishaw in instead, who is also delightful, and quite awesomely is playing Michael Banks in Mary Poppins Returns. And he does, I think, a much better job, and I think he sort of then managed to bring a lot of the sort of right tone to Paddington to kind of create that charm and love. And now we get a Jason!
Winnie!
Pooh Bear! Pooh Bear!
Oh, Jesus Christ. Heavy Rain would be a lot different if someone modded in Pooh Bear.
Oh my god, yes. This is basically what this scene is, and while annoyingly it does immediately make me think of Heavy Rain, I am also just like, I am totally down for this because this is totally a Pooh thing to do.
Mate, we give David Cage a lot of shit, but I would actually really like Winnie the Pooh, or just Disney game on the level of, like, Detroit Become Human, and so on. Just, like, multiple choice game, and so on, big scenes, and so on.
I think that would be quite interesting, but to be fair, I'm actually pretty okay with Kingdom Hearts being my Disney games for the time being, because I do love it, and also, oh my god, Kingdom Hearts 3!
Yep, we watched the final battle trailer recently, so, yeah, this Disneython is actually releasing in January instead of December, so we're properly leading up to Kingdom Hearts 3 now.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a little bit of a bumpy ride with trying to get all these commentaries done. It's why the entire breadth of the marathon has changed somewhat than when we initially started planning it. But basically, there was a chance that we were going to delay it until like next year, and I was just like, Tom, we can't do that. We talk about Kingdom Hearts 3 too much and preparing for it. So, yeah, can't do that because we're going to immediately date everything we've said. I mean, we already do that anyway, but we're just like, we're going to do that really badly. So probably want to get it out before Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out. So at least then it makes sense that we're all going, oh my god, it's nearly here. Because obviously it could come out and then we're just like, oh god, it's crap. Or it could be, oh my god, I still want to talk about it. So at least this way we're excited. It makes sense because it's before the game comes out in terms of when we've recorded these, and you don't think we're complete crazy people.
So even when he's going to take Pooh back home, he's still putting the work in and whatnot. Meanwhile, Pooh's here going cow, tree, cloud, existential crisis. Just say what you see, Rich. Say what you see.
I know. YouTube commentary. No, I'm not very good at this game.
You could have said wall, Richie.
I mean, that is true. Wall, Pop Defender.
Monitor! You're looking at a monitor!
True, Sparkly Reindeer.
What?
Yeah, I've got a sparkly glittery reindeer on my desk. It normally sits sort of next to my TV, but because it's a bit tall, I have to take it off whenever I play games on my TV, like Super Smash Brothers Ultimate and doing World of Light stuff. So, also a copy of Pride and Prejudice. That's sitting on my desk.
We're not doing a movie commentary of the adaptation, Richie. Stop trying to push it.
That's fine. I wouldn't push that at all, unless we were doing a literature movie marathon, in which case potentially. But I think there are other literary adaptations that I would perhaps like to cover first. One example, surprisingly enough, would probably be Aragon. Because I loved that book series, and the film was rather a disappointment. Looking back on it, it was okay for what it was, but it was still a bit of a disappointment. But it was more of a disappointment to me because I saw it on my birthday, which was a terrible decision because I just spent the entire film criticising it.
Mm-hmm.
With the things that it didn't do that the book did, and that this is why sometimes don't always sort of go into a book adaptation expecting complete accuracy, because you're not going to get it.
No, especially not in Fantastic Beasts 2.
Yeah, that was an interesting film. That's all I'm going to say on that matter.
Thank you. Let's avoid spoilers for films that are not affiliated with the marathon. So what is this? Like, is it their country house? Are they renting it? What's going on?
So basically this is Christopher's old family cottage. Basically it's a cottage that his father and mother owned in the countryside in Sussex, in here. And he still owns it. He's never kind of sold it following the death of his parents. But there's not really been out to it either. I believe that A.A. Milne and his wife did have a countryside retreat. Yes, so he bought. Oh, it was in East Sussex. It was Cochford Farm, which is near Ashdown Forest in East Sussex.
Cool.
And though they lived in London, the family spent their weekends, Easter and summer holidays there. So Christopher Robin Milne described it as so there we were in 1925 with a cottage, a little bit of garden, a lot of jungle, 2 fields, a river, and then all the green hilly countryside beyond, meadows and woods waiting to be explored. And that is ultimately what then inspired the 100 Acre Wood, and everything that sort of you see there, because you've got Gill's Lap in the forest inspired Galleon's Lap, which is the group of pine trees on the other side of the main road that became the 6 pine trees. The bridge over the river at Posingford became Pooh Stick's Bridge, and a nearby ancient walnut tree became Pooh's house.
Mm-hmm.
So sort of everything with the forest and the wood became the 100 Acre Wood. And yeah, Christopher Robin Milne really did actually like Cochford. He also had a really good relationship with his nanny who looked after him. And I think, yeah, Strould wants his nanny left because I think she probably looked after him more than his actual parents did. But I think that is probably a relatively common thought of kids of that era, because you look at sort of the early 20th century families and there are a lot of nannies and governesses and all of that sort. I mean, Mary Poppins is a prime example. So I think you probably did end up with quite a few slightly messed up kids thinking that their parents didn't love them that much. But obviously that is going completely against the point of sometimes having a nanny is a necessity, and it doesn't mean that your parents love you any less. It's just that that is necessary for them to be able to do what they need to do. But clearly in Christopher Robin's case, he did resent his parents a little bit for not paying him enough attention.
What I was going to ask was, in the area where the 100 Acre Wood is set or based on one, do they actually have, like, Pooh tours and so on?
Let's have a look.
Yeah.
So it would appear not, but in 2016, 2016-2017, the farm was sold for about £2 million.
Huh.
So it's all on private land. So theoretically, at some point in the future, someone could decide to turn it into Winnie the Pooh attraction of some sort. But what's slightly grim about the farm is that in 1968 the house was bought by Brian Jones, who was a founding member of the Rolling Stones, And then less than a year later, aged 27, he was found motionless at the bottom of the swimming pool.
Yikes.
So, yeah. Had a bit of a history, that farmhouse. Looks absolutely gorgeous, though. My word, you can tell why it sold for £2 billion.
I thought you were talking about his body for a second there.
Oh, God, no. The farmhouse itself looks, stunning. And all of the woodland is included with the property, which is incredible, actually. So, hopefully, at some point in the future, someone does think to turn it into a place of some description for Winnie the Pooh enthusiasts, but even if they don't, as long as it still remains a nice, loving family home, then at least sort of it's doing good in the world.
So we saw the word heffalump on sign back there. Heffalumps and woozles were ever the major fear of Winnie the Pooh and his woodland crew. Basically elephants and weasels. Funnily enough, there would go on to be a heffalump in the more recent Winnie the Pooh films, and also in the Kingdom Hearts 3 version of 100 Acre Wood.
Indeed, and I will say that the heffalump in the animated Poohverse is absolutely adorable and really quite delightful, and it does sort of pose an interesting thing of what do we see as a villain or a monster. Is it actually a monster? Are we just pretending to or is it how we see things, and so on and so forth? And actually, I just feel like, since I've just spotted it, this is worth pointing out, because I do remember it happening. Originally, with the voices of the characters, Chris O'Dowd was going to voice Tigger, but stepped down for the role after audiences and test screenings reacted quite negatively to how he voiced the character. While I think Chris O'Dowd is amazing, Jim Cummings' Tigger is iconic, and why you would think that going anywhere else for your Tigger voice until Cummings has passed is beyond me. That is a sad thought, actually, going forward, because Jim Cummings is amazing. He has got quite a few years left in him, because he's only 66 at the time of doing this, but he's not going to be around forever.
Look, just because we're lost in, like, the Silent Hill version of 100 Acre Wood, doesn't mean you have to go and make everything depressing, Richie. This is the depressing part of the film, but we must try to match it with as much positivity as possible.
I know, but it is one of those things that does tend to happen. Depression breeds more depression. It's a slightly terrifying, never-ending spiral of awfulness. And
Winnie the Pooh, he's kind of like the antithesis of depression. Like, he may be a bit glum sometimes, but, he's a very positive character. Maybe that's why I've liked him all my life, as much as I have.
Oh yeah, ultimately, even though Pooh Bear seems slightly empty, I suppose, at times, there is just sort of a general quiet, calm optimism to him about everything. Even sort of the whole thing of doing nothing is good. He always finds the good in stuff, and even in moments like this where I'm just sat here going, I just want to hug you, Pooh Bear, don't cry, I love you too much for that, he's still just really optimistic even when he's being quite sad. And Pooh Bear's now gone missing because Christopher Robin's being a dick.
I have Heffalump and Woozle, do-do-do. Did we not cover the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh in, like, the second Disneython?
I feel like we did. But that could just be that I'm just remembering watching the film as a kid. So
that's why I have Google Chrome open, mate. I will do some footwork now.
Well, I was about to say, I'll see if you can beat me to it, but then I ended up just typing HellfireComms, which doesn't particularly help, because really what I needed to write was HellfireComms Disneython 2. Thankfully, there is a quick way of doing that, and I have gotten there, but let's see. Is there a bit of Pooh Bear?
Found it.
You got there before me.
Second HFC Disneython, number 17.
Ah, yes, there it is. So, we did cover it.
Great movie, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. That's kind of what started me on my Pooh Fest and whatnot, and never before in the history of a HellfireComms com have I mentioned Pooh as much without being scatologically related.
You say that, and this is really embarrassing, but I'm just going to tell it anyway. So I was hanging out with a few mates the other night. Well, a mate and his friend, to be a bit more accurate, and we were playing a game called Pretender, which I now know that I am absolutely terrible at and should never play again in the future. And so the whole thing of the game is that if you get the Pretender card, you've got to pretend like you know what the everybody else is talking about. Because you pick a category and then an item on that category, and then you go and discuss it. And yeah, I got the Pretender card. I think the category was like health or something along those lines. And so you go around in a circle. I can't remember exactly. I think it was because you do like word association. So it was like throat. Oh no, yeah, throat. Something, poo. Something secretion, and I was just there going like, right. So then I just came out with feces because I thought it was something kind of fibre related.
Don't call him Winnie the Feces, Richie, please.
Well, yeah, no. So I thought it was sort of something fibre related. So that was my tactic, and it was a very terrible tactic because what my mate had done was be quite clever actually, and I'm annoyed at myself for not spotting it. Was the topic was honey, so he said Pooh is in Pooh Bear because Pooh likes honey. Whereas I'd just kind of gone completely off track, and that was completely ridiculous.
Oh, you're my spirit animal.
Oh yeah, Eel is amazing. Like, he's a really good actually example of dealing with depression. Well, not a really good example of dealing with depression. It's more how everybody else deals with Eeyore in the fact that he is depressed, because none of them ever think any less of Eeyore for being miserable. They don't ever try and make him feel well, it's not that they don't try and make him feel better, it's just that they don't pressure him to be anything other than he is.
Nice bait and switch there.
Definitely.
I gotta say, there's a lot of really nice shots in the movie and whatnot. It's shot very well, cinematography-wise.
Oh, god, yeah, it's really, really beautiful, actually.
Like, even if you watch the movie on mute, I think it's at least visually engaging enough for you to have a good time.
Oh, god, yeah. I mean, let's see. Can I see? So, cinematography, this is going to be a fun surname to say, was done by Matthias Konigweiser. I hope I got that correct.
It's fine.
Let's see, can we see what else he's done? So, if his website is correct, annoyingly it's taking a little while to load. This is never helpful, but it looks very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
He's got moving stills and all sorts. Resume, this will be helpful. So actually, in terms of films, he's not done a lot.
Huh.
So he did All I See Is You, before Christopher Robin, then Christopher Robin, and then he's doing pre-production on a film called Puberty. Prior to that, I think he must have... Yeah, so he did a few music videos. So Ariana Grande's Let Me Love You, Rihanna's Kiss It Better, Sigma featuring Birdie's Find Me, and Rudimental's Powerless. He's done a number of commercials, but those mostly seem to have come out this year. He did a few short movies and a few exhibitions, so really he's not done all that much. But he has received 2 awards/nominations. So he got a nomination for Best Cinematography Debut for All I See Is You from somewhere called camera image, and then in the American Cinematographer magazine, he got awarded Rising Stars of Cinematography.
Cool, good for him.
Yeah, and actually, sort of looking at his website, I mean, now I've just seen a picture, a couple of pictures of boobs, which is not what I was expecting on his resume.
Hey, a bonus!
And ass. Oh, there's lots of nudity on this.
God, something for everyone.
Yes, so kids, if you want to look up the cinematographer for Christopher Robin, maybe
I'm going to stop you right there. No, I'm talking over you, No, I can't hear you. I'm not being held responsible because you want a bit of banter, Richie.
I know. Well, no, I'm just saying, maybe don't look it up. You, not for you guys yet. You're a little bit young to be seeing that.
Richie, stop. Put your foot in it.
Yep, that's fine. And, oh, look, it's Piglet!
I had almost this exact... Oh my god, he's huge.
Well, of course he is, because Piglet's tiny.
Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I had almost this exact Piglet cuddly toy as a child. Roughly about the same size. He didn't have the scarf, I don't think.
No, I feel like the scarf is a more recent addition to Piglet's design. I could be wrong. Also, I'm not sure about the green jumper, whether that's a new thing or not, because, I mean, obviously the way that most of us see Piglet is with his sort of pink jersey type thing. And also, while I think that Nick Mohammed does a really good job here, part of me is just like, I really wanted to hear Travis Oates' Piglet, which is the one that I'm mostly used to. Well, either Phil Barron's or Travis Oates, but Travis Oates is the current voice of Piglet.
The little wispy kind of guy.
Yeah, so it's one that I'm much more familiar with. He's voiced Piglet since Kingdom Hearts 2, so... It's one of those things where part of me wishes that they had used the kind of main voices for these characters, but then also I know it's the curse of making a film in this day and age of you need to bring your celebrities in there to try and push it, even if that's not necessarily what you should be doing for the sanctity, I suppose, of the narrative and the film you're trying to promote.
Yeah, for sure. How do you feel about the plot point of him having to prove that he's the real Christopher Robin to his friends again?
I actually do quite like it as a plot point. Whether it's done well or not is a different kettle of fish. But, I mean, it makes sense. Like, none of them have seen him in a very, very long time. It's decades since they last saw him. Like, he looks completely different. How on earth are they going to be able to tell exactly that it's him? Obviously Pooh Bear can, but that's because Pooh Bear's Pooh Bear. And can see through to the very essence of a person. Whereas none of the others really can. So it makes sense that he has to try and prove that he is who he says he is. But I think that it is quite a fun little thing, and also it shows progression, I suppose, for Christopher Robin.
Yeah.
Because obviously he spends a lot of the film, I mean, we're just over an hour in now, where he's been very serious and no time for play, all work, and now actually he is, he's playing, he's being completely ridiculous, and it's really quite fun and really quite hilarious, and also made you all smile. So I mean, like, seriously, what is there not to love?
Oh my god, I want to fucking frame that picture of him just sitting down with a little grin on his face, put it on my wall, and just looking up at it every time. Do it for him, Tom. Do it for Eeyore. I can't really hear Peter as Rabbit, I'm gonna be honest.
Neither can I, actually. I think it's why I was just like, oh, is it? I think it's because he's doing a lot higher of a voice than we're used to. Because pretty much the voice we know of Peter Capaldi is his doctor voice, and Malcolm Tucker from The Thick of It.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those are his sort of regular level speaking voice, which is sort of deep Scottish. Whereas Rabbit's is sort of very much on the other end of the spectrum.
I gotta say, I really admire the dedication of them going out of the way to find a real talking rabbit and owl for this. They're not actually CGI at all. We've been lying to you the whole movie commentary.
Oh, I know, it's just like, these are very, very talented animals. I mean, I'd be very disappointed if they weren't. Like, my God! They need to get the people who trained these animals in for, like, the Lion King live-action movie. Because, I mean, you know, otherwise it's not a live-action movie at all.
Well, gotta leave now, sorry.
Yeah, and also not all back together, because Pooh's missing.
Jesus. But he was the heart of us all. How will we live without him?
I know, but also it's just like, guys, you all ran off and hid without Pooh Bear, and actually without Piglet either, because Piglet was all by his lonesome. And Eeyore, it's just like, guys, what the hell is wrong with you? Stick together! This happens to you every single time something scary happens. We have to pick you all back up in Kingdom Hearts 2. Like, the least you can do is stay together for once, my God.
I just remember you having to catch Piglet in the first game's 100 Acre Woods, and then in the second one you have to knock him out of a tree.
Yep.
Lovely.
Oh, yes.
What is all this, like, plant stuff? Is it heather?
I would think so. Yeah, that sounds about right. Actually, something that I want to point out, which I am loving, is that actually a lot of the filming that took place for the scenes in the 100 Acre Wood did actually take place in Ashdown Forest, which was the original inspiration for the 100 Acre Woods.
Perfect.
Which is great. Some bits of it were done at Windsor Great Park, which is in Windsor, and other bits of it were done at Shepperton Studios in Surrey. But obviously scenes like this in the outdoors, I'm pretty sure is probably Ashdown Forest. And that is, I mean, this is just quintessential British countryside. This is what the British countryside looks like. And it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my heart! My heart!
I know, and I'm pretty sure that when I first watched the film, I spent the majority of it just going, like, flitting between, oh, Pooh Bear, to, oh, Pooh Bear!
Yeah.
It's like in sort of those two different registers of, I'm really sad and want to hug Pooh Bear, and I'm really happy this is adorable and I want to hug Pooh Bear. Which just shows how much of a big kid I am, but I'm totally fine with that, and I love every second of it.
Damn you, you emotionally manipulative piece of shit movie. I will not be moved!
You're already moved, god damn it, you can't get away from this.
Hog of the North Star, you are already moved. God, just... static!
I know, I mean, just what a shot.
Not to give too much away, but the movie kind of begins and ends on pretty much the same shot. And I gotta say, I love bookends like that.
Oh, gotcha. I mean, bookends really are one of my favourite narrative tools / framing devices. It's just because it's always really effective because it brings you back to where you began, but it shows just how much things have changed or just how much things are the same. And it's really effective for getting that sort of message across. And yeah, it's really great. I love it.
Oh, this is one thing they've kept consistent. Al's speeches and whatnot. He keeps talking, but nobody ever wants to listen. And, oh god, I'm discovering several things about myself throughout the course of this commentary.
Although, to be fair, you don't do exactly what Al does, which is one, name drop, and then go on an incredibly long adage about his particular subject matter. Oh god, I've just realised, you're not Owl, I'm Owl.
Yeah, I'm Rabbit, mate.
So that would make Flame Eel then, I suppose? Maybe? Or is he Tigger?
He's a mix of Eeyore and Tigger, I think.
So he's Tiggle then.
Yeah, he is Tigor. Tigor. That spells Tigor.
So who's the Pooh Bear?
We're not assigning every single character, alright? We're not doing that.
Oh, come on! We've still got, like, the slightly crazy bit of the film to go. We might as well start it off with a slightly crazy subject matter of trying to place all the characters.
Fine, fucking Volk is Winnie the Pooh, then.
Okay, that's fine. So, who's THG, then? I know he's not technically part of the group, but he's still part of the group.
He can share Al with you.
Okay, that's fine. Tanner?
Tanner is a mix of Tigger and I want to say Al, honestly.
Fair enough. So really all we've not filled in is Kanga and Roo.
Yeah, or Piglet, honestly.
Or Piglet, yeah. That's fair enough. Oh well. Also, this is, like, super awkward.
Yeah, it's like, oof, wasn't meant to be seen. Oh, hello, Hayley Atwell. You too.
Yep, it's just like, I was here, I didn't intend to say hi, because I didn't want to embarrass myself, but I needed to be here, and now I've got to go. This is really awkward. Bye!
Also, family troubles. Oh, I hate Daddy so much. Ah, little does she know, she's going to have a real stuffed bevy of animals coming her way soon.
Pretty much, yeah. And Hayley Atwell is suitably annoyed. I mean, just like, seriously, you just like, sorry, husband, you decided to come out here to where we are, but not say hello to us, and also we're going to escape without even letting us know that you were here. What the frick were you up to?
You and McGregor having marital troubles. I tried my damnedest to keep it under wraps, but yeah, there it is.
Yes, it is a wee bit on the nose, but there we go. But with all that said, Ewan McGregor's performance in this film was really well received.
Yeah, I love him, yeah.
So yeah, David Fear of the Rolling Stone said, he's an actor who can roll with this movie's punches, whether it requires him to be light on his feet, or dragged down by existential despair, exhilarated by childhood play, or childlike play, or exasperated by a house-wrecking creature who says things like, people say nothing is impossible, but I do nothing every day.
Aww.
Adam Forsgren for East Idaho News wrote, first and foremost is McGregor's performance in the title role. The guy sells being the put-upon, overburdened office drone so well that it's a treat to see him begin to rediscover his younger self and let himself play. McGregor is the glue that holds this movie together. I
would half agree there. Like, I like the 100 Acre Wood crew as well.
Yeah, I think that basically your two bits of glue are Ewan McGregor and Jim Cummings. I think that's what makes this movie work at the end of the day. So yeah, Stephanie Zacharek, or I think that's how you pronounce it, of Time magazine stated, but it's doubtful the movie would work at all if not for McGregor. He turns Christopher's anxiety into a haunting presence, the kind of storm cloud that we can all now and then feel hovering above us. Yet McGregor is also an actor capable of expressing unalloyed delight, and when as Christopher Robin he finally does, some of that delight rubs off on us too. And then, last but not least, Brian Lowy also noted in his review for CNN, give much of the credit to McGregor in the thankless task of playing opposite his adorable furry co-stars, ably handling the comedy derived from the fact that he doesn't dare let others see them. That's a bit of a statement, but the rest of it, yes, I do agree with, in the sense that he does an excellent job of playing off of the characters, who obviously are not there. I'm always endlessly amazed by the ability of actors in terms of their performances alongside CGI creations.
Yeah, but it can get a bit much. See,
oh yes,
Ian McKellen in the Hobbit movies where he was reduced to tears.
Yeah, that's when you're going a little bit too far in the thing, where there are actually other people present who should be there acting alongside you and they're not. It makes sense in this sort of situation where, you know, your co-stars are cuddly toys that move and talk, or, you know, like a dragon, or any sort of other alien thing that requires sort of more balls and stuff than people in actual like green screen costumes, which is kind of how a lot of people seem to be doing CGI at this point, of having those motion capture suits.
Ewan isn't a stranger to an overabundance of CGI. See Star Wars.
I know. I'm still very disappointed that we have yet to get the Obi-Wan Kenobi film that we were sort of nearly promised but didn't quite get to until Solo sort of killed the whole steam that Star Wars had going for it. We'll see where we all end up with once Episode 9 comes out, and that either brings everything back or kind of flops. That will be an interesting one to check out, but I would still totally be behind a good Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan Kenobi film, because I think it's the film that we all wanted.
Oh, hell yeah. Yes. But we love you anyway, Eeyore, huskiness or no.
Exactly.
All the warriors, everyone is here!
Except Rabbit, Al, Kenga, and Roo.
Well, I mean, Rabbit and Al would just be liabilities and probably actually shot for being real animals on the loose. And Kenga is a single mother with a child, so she would also be just in the way, really.
I mean, this is true. So really, these four are the only ones that are going to be able to make it. And to be honest, these four are the ones who are the most popular and also the most marketable. So, of course, they're the ones that are going to go through into the real world. It makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there could have been a bit more of, the ones left behind, but as is, I just prefer, this half of the group, so that's fine.
Yeah, I think nobody would specifically kick up a major stink at the others not making it through. And also, I do really like this moment because, this is actually how I think a lot of kids probably would react to random talking voices appearing and then what is going to occur.
Come out with your hands up, I will throw a shit fit at you. Sorry, I meant to say rock, but you mentioned shit fit earlier, it just played on my mind.
Did I mention shit fit earlier?
Kicked up a shit or something, I don't know. Just focus on what's happening, it doesn't matter, it's in the past.
Yeah, this would probably be sort of my reaction, not quite to seeing talking cuddly toy animals. It probably would be just like an initial going, ah! And then suddenly, if it was my father's cuddly toys from the past going, oh no, wait a minute, Pooh Bear, Eeyore, Piglet, where's Tigger?
Did you just call him Biglet, like he's homophobic or something?
I'm pretty sure I said Piglet, but honestly, at this point, I don't know. Also, can I just say I love this moment as well?
Yep. Oh, I will be glad to tell you, in song form.
Yes, the song!
It's a bit on the nose, it's a bit pandering, but you know what? I don't give a fuck.
I honestly really don't either. When it happened, I was just like, oh my god, yes, I love this. I am totally down for this. I also love that Eeyore's just like, oh, not again, as if he's done this, every single time he's had to say his name to anybody, and is just, so done with it by this point. And
that's very
brilliant.
Modern Disney, though. That slight bit of... It's thankfully kept to a minimum here, because this film actually respects its roots. But, there's a very postmodernism thing going throughout Disney nowadays. Like, the princesses in Wreck-It Ralph 2 being all self-reliant and whatnot. And, do people assume a man helped you solve all your problems? Which is very weird that they got Rapunzel, of all characters, to say that, but still.
Yeah. I will say, having now seen the film, I do really like how they do the Disney princesses in that film. It's great, I love it. It works a lot better in the whole context of the film, and what they do in the film is brilliant. Complete pandering, but I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do think that Disney nowadays does tend to be quite a lot more postmodern than they ever used to be, but that is because we are... I want to say in a postmodern age, but really at this point we're more postmodern, because we react weirdly to a whole bunch of different things. Like, some things we're really, really cynical and rolling our eyes and sarcastic about, and other things we're just so willing to completely go in for cheese and ridiculousness that it just sort of glosses over our head entirely. And I'm not quite sure how we got to this point, but I'm sort of fine with it in a way.
Uh-huh.
What I'm not fine with is that this ticket officer would give a young girl a train ticket without her parent being present. But there we go.
Well, I mean, she had a bunch of furry chaperones, so...
Yeah, that's totally a good enough reason to be giving an unaccompanied minor a train ticket to London.
Look, alright, it's the epic finale. We have to get some action in there.
I mean, true, but...
Anything off the trolley, dears?
Everything!
We'll take the lot. Well, aren't you a fucking greedy cunt?
I know! You look back at when sort of everyone first watched Harry Potter, and the immediate reaction to, oh, I'll have everything, at that point in your life is, oh my god, Harry Potter's like the coolest kid ever. You get to sort of our age now and you're just like, oh my god, Harry Potter, you greedy bloody little arsehole.
What a punk.
What about the other kids who wanted all the sweets on that trolley? You've just taken that away from them.
Well, he didn't mean the lot, he just meant like one of everything. But still, have you heard about the fucking... the trolley lady in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child?
I think I might have done. Doesn't she turn out to be like a Death Eater or something ridiculous like that?
Oh, much worse than just a Death Eater. Slight spoilers, but she turns out to be a spirit that guards the Hogwarts Express, which basically turns into a vengeful wraith if the train's attacked.
Oh yeah. I do sort of remember that. Not 100% not a fan of that idea. But kind of a bit ridiculous. I think it was a Harry Potter sequel, I want to say. It's one of the Star-Kid musical parody versions of Harry Potter, where they did have quite a bit of fun with the trolley lady and did actually have her thrown off the trolley and replaced by a Dementor, which was hilarious. That's what I remember.
Yeah, she's been essentially walking the halls of the Hogwarts Express for almost 200 years.
It's fine by me. Mark Gatiss here is being an absolute smug arsehole because he went to go play golf over the weekend whilst Christopher Robin was working his butt off.
Well, that's bureaucracy for you. I'm sorry, I'll get off this subject, but I absolutely need to read this excerpt. Trolley Witch says, "These hands have made over 6 million pumpkin pasties. I've gotten quite good at them, but what people haven't noticed about my pumpkin pasties is how easily they transform into something else. She picks up a pumpkin pasty, she throws it like a grenade, it explodes."
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a thing.
The trolley witch's hands transfigure into very sharp spikes. She smiles. "So please retake your seats for the remainder of the journey." Okay, I'm fucking done. I'm sorry.
Yeah, probably for the best. We don't want to be murdered by the Potterheads who do like Cursed Child. I don't think it's necessarily a majority, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
But still. Also, this is going to be like the most awkward board meeting ever, because you've got, obviously, Christopher Robin going, oh, God, I've got to come up with something. And then, obviously, we know that he doesn't have his notes. But he doesn't know he doesn't have his notes. And then, obviously, Mark Gatiss is being a smug arsehole who hasn't done anything. He's just going to let Christopher Robin do everything.
He's just making this noise throughout the entirety of the meeting.
Yes.
Calm down, Tigger. It's just a reflection. Although, to be fair, there's no mirrors in the 100 Acre Wood, pretty much so.
Yeah, so he's not used to his reflection, but he's going to cause absolute chaos right now.
This is some of the farcical stuff I was talking about, because I guess they needed some action in the movie just to spice things up towards the end. I can honestly take it or leave it. Like, I knew it was coming, because I knew a little bit about the word of mouth and so on, but it's fine.
Yeah, it's one of those bits where this bit of the film does feel at odds with the earlier bits of the film, which were very much more serious, very much more grounded, despite, dealing with a cuddly talking bear. And this bit just go completely off the wall. Although, can I just mention that they got Mackenzie Crook as one of the people here. He's the newspaper seller, and he's someone that you will probably most likely recognise as being the guy who had the glass eye Rigetti in the Pirates of the Caribbean films, which is just quite fun. So yeah, it's a bit ridiculous. It works. It is quite delightful manicness. It is quite fun farce. But it does appear very quickly and then is over almost as quickly as it began. So it does feel a little bit out of place, but it could have been a lot worse. It could have been so much worse.
Isn't the dude with the flat cap out of the Pirates movies?
You talking about the newspaper seller?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just said it's Mackenzie Crook, who's the guy with the eyeball.
Well, fuck. This is what I get for not paying attention.
Your other ones there were Matt Berry as the policeman, who people would probably recognise as being the boss character in the IT crowd. He's also he's in various other things. He's a pretty kind of frequent comedy actor. But I think he does mostly do TV stuff. He was Prince Merkimer in Disenchantment on Netflix, and yeah, he's been in other things as well. And then the taxi driver was a guy called Simon Farnaby, who was a principal cast member of Horrible Histories, and has written and starred in films such as Mindhorn, and he was also in Paddington 2.
Oh.
So there's a nice little link for you. Also, this is going to end terribly for them, I feel, because Tigger just needs to, contain the bounce, but clearly he cannot do that.
I just want him to burst into this room and smack Mark Gatiss' character in the face. That would make for a really dramatic finale.
Oh, it definitely would. It would be hilarious as well, but I don't think we'd quite manage to do that one.
God, I just want to smack him. He plays the role so well, does Mark?
He's got a very excellent smug face.
He does, yeah.
Some people can't do smug and have that vibe where you want to punch them so hard in the face when they're not like that. Others can do it perfectly because they are like that, and others just can't do it. I mean, I think that I'm probably one of the people who, if I tried to be that smug and smarmy, I would just look ridiculous. It wouldn't match me at all, whereas Mark Gatiss can pull it off wonderfully because it's just the right level of smarm.
I'm sorry, my family needs me more. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, he doesn't know it at the minute, but it's just like, his daughter is missing. Like, seriously, a meeting can wait.
I yearn to be free. I must bounce.
Yeah, bouncy, 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 fun, 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 fun.
Did they ever find another Tigger, or was, like, the moral of that movie, we're all Tiggers in the end?
I'm pretty sure that the moral of the story was we're all Tiggers in the end. But Tigger is the most Tigger of the Tiggers. Because, yeah, the whole thing of, I think, was it called The Wonderful Thing About Tiggers?
Not honestly sure. I think it was just the Tigger movie.
Oh, no, yes, it was the Tigger movie. You are right there. Yeah, because he went searching for his family, and then he realised that his friends were his family. So they were all honorary Tiggers, I think was the end process. And yes, this bit ends wonderfully. And also want to point out that Mark Gatiss' father in this, who is, I can't remember the name of the character, but he's played by Oliver Davies, or Oliver Ford Davies is his full name, who has been in a lot of things over the years, but one that people probably would recognise him as being is C.O. Bibble in the Star Wars prequels films. Because I was looking at him thinking, I know your face. And yeah, it's from those. But he was also the Archbishop of Canterbury in Johnny English, which is a particularly iconic role, although obviously the main thing that you do sort of remember him for in that is his bum.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Yes.
Is it a nice bum, at least?
Of course! It's the Archbishop of Canterbury's bum. I say, despite the fact that Davies has been awarded the Olivier Award in 1990 for Best Actor in a New Play for Racing Demon, and was nominated for multiple other performances in the theatre, namely Best Performance in a Supporting Role in Absolutely Perhaps at Wyndham's Theatre in 2003, and as Polonius in the RSC production of Hamlet at the Novella Theatre in 2009. Also, can I just say that Hayley Atwell also does an amazing job of the response that I'm sure anybody would, or like any adult would have to the talking creatures.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck, just keep driving.
Just like, I'm driving, there were talking animals in the car, what the hell is going on? I thought I was crazy, but I'm not crazy because there's things happening here, and what the hell are they?
I love Tigger's emerald green eyes. I've been meaning to mention it throughout the whole film.
I know, they just pop, don't they? They're really nice to look at.
Well, it goes well against, like, his faded yellow fur.
I know, it is really good. You know, for all the flaws that this film does have, I mean, its sort of main flaws, I think, are its pacing, its slight tonal dissonance between the first two-thirds of the film and its end, it being perhaps a little bit too overly melancholy for a large portion of it.
CGI paper.
Yes. Like, when you get sort of specific moments and specific things that they do, I can't really find anything hugely wrong with it. So I do feel like some of the reviews that it got that were sort of more towards like the 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10 range were being a little bit overly harsh. I think you should be looking more at like a 7, 8 out of 10 ranking for this film, just because I think it does succeed with what it sets out to do.
I would give it like either a very high 7 or a very low 8. I've heard people compare it to another Christopher Robin-centric film, which I think was called Goodbye, Christopher Robin.
Yes!
Apparently that did what this film wanted to do, but better. But for me, this film is much like Pooh Bear, not much brains, but a lot of heart. And granted, it doesn't hit every beat it's trying to go for. But again, Ewan McGregor and Jim Cummings basically carry the movies, or the movie, singular, on its back. And, you know, I think it's got a good supporting cast, it's shot well, it's scored beautifully. So, it's not the most smart of films, it's not the most challenging of films, but it's like a warm cup of tea. You drink it, it warms you up, and then that feeling fades after a little while, but it's fine because the feeling was nice.
Exactly, and I mean, yes, you are correct in the film that you're referring to. It was called Goodbye Christopher Robin, released in 2017, and was much more sort of biographical about the lives of A. Milne and his family, particularly his son Christopher Robin. So you do get sort of a similar arc in terms of Christopher going off to war and all of those sorts of issues, although actually no, it doesn't quite begin with the war. That's more towards the end. But it is very much more, I think, the resentment and the growing up and falling out of love with the idea of Pooh Bear and Christopher Robin and war and all of that stuff. But it has a sort of reconciliation at the end, which is not exactly what happened in real life. And actually, from what I can gather, the general reception to it is not quite as good as Christopher Robin. I think, Goodbye Christopher Robin struggles to balance wartime tension and childlike wonder, but offers valuable insight into the darkness shadowing the creation of a classic children's tale. So I think it's probably one of those more of, it was a bit more effective at its deep messaging, or elements of its deep messaging, than it was balancing the tension between sort of melancholy and childlike wonder. So I suppose they're two sides of the same coin, really, which is kind of funny because they came out so close together.
Yeah.
Because Goodbye Christopher Robin was 2017, this was 2018.
It's kind of like when the Jungle Book projects were announced. Like,
oh yes,
I guess they just must have been working in tandem without realizing it.
I mean, part of me doesn't think... Well, I can't believe that they didn't realise that it was happening, because people talk so much in the film circles that surely most of the people who are working on certain films know what other people are working on. So I do find it hard-pressed to think that they didn't know that was happening. But obviously when they both got announced at the same time, it was a bit like, you sure this is a smart idea? And it's why the... Oh my god, I've forgotten what his name is. That's really bad. Gollum's... Andy Serkis, there we go. Andy Serkis's Mowgli has come out so much later than it was initially planned to, because they needed to wait for the Disney's live-action Jungle Book period to pass before it was a good thing to land. At least with these two films, is that Goodbye Christopher Robin was very much more based in reality. This was very much more based on continuing the story of Pooh Bear, and so you're dealing with two very different narrative arcs rather than the Jungle Book.
Shut up, you silly Puff. I'm trying to talk to the smart man. Got something to say, Robin? Oh, okay. I would have called him a prick, but Woozle works as well.
Yes, also, I mean, we are kind of in a kids' film, so prick, probably not quite suitable language for such a film. Also, I'd be slightly concerned for his mental well-being for saying "my dear friends" when referring to, a string of cuddly toys that aren't moving. But there we go. That is what happens when you grow older. Things that sort of worked when you were a child, of like the wonderful glee and childhood wonder, suddenly become a little bit more ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And people start to think you're a little bit crazy, even if you're not. Which is sad. I do really wish that us as adults did sort of retain more of that childhood wonder and glee and ability to imagine, because it is a wonderful thing, but we are where we are, and it's films like this which kind of try and say, no, go back to that, because that is useful.
There you go. Not so smug now, are you, Mark Gatiss?
I know, and nobody has to be made redundant. It's brilliant.
I mean, Christopher had a great point. People need luggage when they go on holiday, so...
Yeah, and if people can't go on holiday, then they're not going to need luggage. So allow people to go on holiday, they'll buy luggage, and then you'll make more money, which means that they can get the job, keep their jobs. Duh, makes sense.
I love that guy. He's so dour.
I know. It's great.
Oh. Owned.
It's just the perfect way of going, ha! Sod off.
So what passes for an antagonist did get his comeuppance. But if I would have to say, like, the downside of going for a more whimsical thing is, like, some of, like, the elements do jar, when you try to go for some more action-packed elements and so on. I don't think it needed a big chase scene or anything, or one less chaotic, shall we say. But, I'm not going to mark the movie down because of it. I just feel it could have been done more cozily, shall we say, more whimsically to match the whimsical tone. Although I do love the serious tone the movie goes for overall, especially towards the beginning. I would say, like, the first third is probably, like, the best part of the movie, but the rest of it's great. What it does great is the cinematography, the music.
Yes.
The casting is wonderful. I think everyone is perfectly cast here, especially Ewan McGregor, Hayley Atwell, and Jim Cummings. Mark Gatiss is fun, if a bit overly hammy, but no, that's just Mark Gatiss. And it's got a great ending as well. Like I said, it bookends it perfectly.
Oh yeah, and also can I just say I love the fact that both Evelyn and Madeline are in yellow, and Christopher's got the red sweater vest, so he basically matches up with Pooh, and that I just look at that and just go, oh my god, this is the best thing ever. It's really effective, and it also just makes for a really wonderful shot.
Be mean to ask, did you ever get a craving for honey, given how Pooh slopes it down like the ocean's very water itself back in the day?
I mean, thankfully not. I mean, as I said, I didn't used to like honey. It's only been a relatively recent occurrence, but nowadays, while I like honey, it's more chocolate. That's my current guilty pleasure. I need to cut down on it, but then obviously, as Pooh would say, if you're, well, I don't think he's ever said it, but sort of if you love it and it's not harming anybody, what the hell's wrong with it?
As Winnie the Pooh said, bitches get stitches, and then diabetes. He's wearing a little red shirt like Pooh Bear. Oh,
that's literally what I just said.
Silly old Pooh! Much like Scooby-Doo, I hope Winnie the Pooh continues to be evergreen, because I would like him to be a constant in my life, honestly. What an ending shot.
Oh, I know. Yeah, just I also would love Pooh Bear to just continue, because the whole thing of Pooh Bear is just a really wonderful message to pass on to kids. And even though A. Milne grew to dislike what he'd created, the fact that Christopher Robin Milne eventually returned to actually quite liking what his father had done with his childhood, well, the stories of his childhood, I think, and the fact of how important Pooh Bear is to so many people just kind of means it should continue, and I'm so happy. Also, make sure that you do continue watching through the credits, because there's a little cameo from the delightful, amazing Richard Sherman, and it's great, and I love it.
Good stuff, mate. Alright guys, thanks for listening to our commentary on Christopher Robin. Come back tomorrow when the third HFC Disneython continues, where we'll have another one of these for you. Bye-bye.